Yeah. I'm feeling a bit underdressed here. How reflexive are we really? Self-enhancing biases and ego involvement. Self-enhancement is basically anything we say, think or do that makes us feel better about ourselves, or that we're better than other people, or that our prospects in life are going to be well. Ego involvement, a big example of self-enhancement, I hope it's not too controversial, is the fact that a lot of the Western world and the developing world believes that there's going to be an afterlife. That's a self-enhancing bias in itself. But on a smaller scale, an example of self-enhancing bias, like in a more mundane way, is say you have a letter in the post, you know it's got a bill inside, so you don't bother opening it. Ego involvement isn't technically a definition, but if there's something important to somebody, they can be said to have an invested interest in the outcome of that thing. There are many ways that we don't know ourselves as much as we'd like to think, and empirical studies demonstrating this have ranged from participants' family and friends predicting their daily behaviours better than they do, or on a darker level, say when we make excuses for bad behaviour. Self-deception may have evolved to facilitate deception, because if we can convince ourselves of the lie slightly, it's easier to convince others because it takes off the cognitive load, and it stops us from giving away, say, non-verbal cues of the lie. This picture here is from David Attenborough's Frozen Planet. When this penguin goes to get his rock for his nest, this cheeky little penguin over here will steal his rock and then go back and pretend that he's an innocent penguin. Objective levels are where we actually stand on a trait or performance or behaviour. Ideal levels are where we'd like to see ourselves, and perceived levels are where we think we're at on the trait of behaviour. The distance between these levels is what determines how likely we are to self-enhance. My studies mainly focus on the secondary control aspect of self-enhancing biases, where you reinterpret the environment and the situation to make you feel better about yourself, like you're maximising your strengths and minimising your weaknesses and things like that. Okay, Robinson Beer did a longitudinal study following they followed their students for 3 years in some American university, and self-enhancing bias, different levels of that had different outcomes. Like sometimes it's a good thing, it's healthy, and like a lot of optimism research focuses on that kind of thing. But it can also be a bad thing if taken too far. If taken too far, it can become a bad thing. In their study, students who were really highly self-enhancing but weren't doing too well on their course, they sort of became less engaged in their course and thought to themselves, oh, there's other things I could be better at anyway, and things like that. So I basically tried to replicate the thing that they did over 3 years, just in a small space of 30 minutes, undergraduate project. So I've got 4 dependent variables: mood, measured by the Parler scale. Ego involvement was measured by life domains of importance. So I made up 21 domains ranging from social life, romance, wealth, health, to politics or whatever, things like that. It's about 21 on a scale of -1, opposed to my interests, to 8, highly in line with my interests. It was like self-ratings. And then the better than average effect was my measurement of self-enhancing tendencies. And then the 4th dependent variable of expectations was basically the same as the life domain scale, but how well they expected to do in those domains 2 years down the line. Oh, and the independent variable was a false feedback from a fake emotional intelligence test. So quite nasty false feedback. Yeah, the procedure. First of all, participants did the 4 questionnaires online on SurveyMonkey, and then they'd come into the lab a couple of days later and do the pretend emotional intelligence test. And I'd wait outside, and then they'd get the false feedback after the experimental condition would get the false feedback after finishing the test. They'd press a button, it'd say please wait while we calculate your results, and then give them quite a nasty paragraph on their lack of social skills or emotional maturity and things like that. Controls just said save results after they did the test, and then they came back in and gave. And then after the false feedback, or the emotional intelligence test, participants redid the 4 questionnaires again on paper. The false feedback had significantly affected mood, the mood-dependent variable. There was a significant decrease in positive affect and an even more significant increase in negative affect. So it definitely worked in that sense, but the second dependent variable didn't work perfectly. The only dependent variables that participants changed, that they changed what they thought was important, was learning and social life. Romance also had a tendency towards significance. There wasn't any significant between subjects differences on the better than average effect scale after false feedback, but all participants, whether controls or experimental condition, they significantly decreased their self-enhancing tendency just by going into the lab from their SurveyMonkey measures to their post-test measures. So it seems like there was almost sort of imposed modesty or something taking place. And finally, the final DV, the only expectations that they changed following false feedback was career choice and career direction. So I tried to replicate the sour grapes effect, which is when you say to yourself, you're really interested in something, or something that you really want, but you can't get it, so you tell yourself, oh, it's no good then, I don't want that, I'm not interested in that, I'm finding something better. So that's kind of what I tried to demonstrate in this. The mood work, it changed, but it wasn't quite, it didn't really change life, what they saw as important that much. And it definitely didn't change their self-enhancing tendencies. But it's quite possible that that's because, I was trying to get an effect that Robbins would be found over 3 years in just a space of 30 minutes. But it was really surprising as how much participants believed the feedback, because a good third of them were psychology students. Well, a third were first years and second years, and then a third were third years. And this movie was to us, like to me as a researcher doing it, like the test obviously wasn't an emotional intelligence test. The questions on it were not really that relevant. They were like, what would you rather be doing on a Friday night, or dating profile questions or something. But they believed it. And in the debrief, I had to debrief them thoroughly, obviously, to let everybody know that it wasn't it wasn't important. It was false feedback. It wasn't a real test. So yeah, there seems to be some kind of the same sort of obedience thing, like the authority of the experimental situation seemed to be able to convince people of this. Right, so in the future, I didn't get as much of the effects I expected to, but there's many other ways to measure self-enhancing biases. For example, you could do a sort of downward social comparison thing, where you get the participants to think of somebody worse off than themselves, and then see if it has a stronger self-enhancing effect. Or like something like participants could keep diaries for a good for a week on their sort of their values and their achievements, and then see if we get this effect we're looking for. Or maybe it's not a big deal anyway. Maybe it's self-enhancing tendencies aren't that maladaptive, because the self system tends to be quite conservative, as in, unless you're, say, like severe sort of like on personality, like quite a severe personality disorder, or some level of like tendencies for delusions or psychosis, it's hard to push the self system too much. Like you can only lie to yourself so much. So maybe it's not a big deal after all. Maybe it doesn't. It's not. There's more positive effects for it than negative effects in terms of health and things like that, and social effects. And if it is more of a positive thing, that's the whole point. This is the debating how healthy, how unhealthy is it to be self-enhancing. We could extend it into domains of, say, if you could find like adaptive or productive ways to extend this into like things like coaching or counselling psychology or health psychology, things like that. Anyway, thank you very much. This picture here is sent to us by our supervisor after we all finished our different projects by email, which is quite nice to get. But yeah, if you have any questions, thank you very much for listening.
I've got one because that's sort of my students that are aware that I'm sort of involved in the ethics committee of the department.
Yeah, it's been
I'd like to know, how long did it take you to get through the ethics committee because of the levels of deception involved in your...
I think it just took as long as everybody else's studies. I'm not going to comment on this because I don't think... I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't think they might not have looked at the false feedback on the emotional intelligence tests as thoroughly as they possibly should have. But all participants were fine. Like the debrief, I'd spent 5 minutes. There's a couple of people in here who actually took part in it. And it was a great relief, and people were fine. And they said, yes, how you can use my results, this is fine. But yeah, it's a bit unethical, isn't it?
Okay,
I was just wondering, out of interest, like, how did the participants respond to the debrief?
Just
no,
quite relief, quite a lot of relief. Trying to remember now. Just they were okay. I mean, most people found it funny. They did say that like at first they were a bit put out by this false feedback, but they pretty much were like, okay, it's fine. You know, they thought it was interesting or whatever. Like, yeah. Okay.